Welcome to the latest edition of Until Saturday. I'm Ari Wasserman, joined by David Ubben and Justin Williams. Week 4, boys. This is maybe the best week on the entire college football slate right now. I guess as the rankings currently exist, we have, I believe, 7 top 25 matchups, including Ohio State, Notre Dame. We get Colorado, Oregon. Last week, if that was a tough week going into it on paper, this is a glorious week going to it on paper. And I'm super excited to get into our weekly picks. Justin, since this is, I think, your first Until Saturday appearance with us, let's start with you. What's going on with you this week?
Nothing. I'm continue to be impressed by this Pac-12 like late in life renaissance that we're having. 3 games with 3 ranked matchups like that. The Oregon Colorado one is obviously taking all the headlines, but Utah UCLA is happening at the same time on another national broadcast channel. Like it's wild to think about this conference kind of being, I think, the class of college football right now, and it's the zombie Pac-12. It's going away here in a matter of months, unfortunately.
It's the league that's been given a death sentence, and it has a year to check off everything on its bucket list, and it's doing that. It's doing that currently. Have the best quarterbacks, maybe get 2 teams in the playoff, get people to talk about us, have the biggest story in sports. The Pac-12
get people to wait up till 2 a.m. watching us. Because listen, I know what Colorado is kind of its own beast right now, but Colorado is Pac-12 after dark until further notice. Yes. So I'm with you guys on this. So as we get into the show, let me first remind everybody to be sure to follow the podcast on Apple or wherever they listen to podcasts. Drop us a 5-star review and leave a question with your review, and we will answer it on the show if it is indeed a 5-star. Subscribe to the Until Saturday YouTube channel. If you're here watching it live right now, we appreciate that. If you're listening to this in podcast form, the link to the YouTube can be found in the show's description. We will be live every Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday on YouTube throughout the entire season as we preview, react to, and have our Sunday sound off on, guess what, Sunday. Be sure to leave a voicemail or text Until Saturday's phone number at 316-462-9852. Again, that is 316-462-9852, where we will play your voicemails on the show. And that's what makes Sunday Sound Off, I think, one of the best episodes that we have every week. It's because we get to hear your beautiful voices and all those people who, have questions, comments, concerns, opinions, stories, anything that you have to say. Please leave that voicemail and we will try our best to get it onto the show. You can also text that phone number if you want to ask a question, and we get those texts as well. One last time, the phone number is 316-462-9852. And be sure to sign up for the Until Saturday newsletter, where you'll get your daily fill of college football news right to your inbox. The links and everything that you need are in the show's description on both things. So lastly, the Official Visit's 4th episode, where Max and I went across the country to cool college campuses to kind of show you the diners, drive-ins, and dives version of college campuses. The latest episode was North Carolina, that published on Thursday, the morning that we were recording the show. We encourage you to go look at that on YouTube or read about it on the athletics platforms. And lastly, before we get into the picks, guys, all the lines that we are going to be talking about today are presented by BetMGM. So as we get into this, we have some monster games, and we're going to do the inverted pyramid. Remember journalism school? It's the only thing I remember from journalism school, but I remember it. It's a pyramid, and it goes downward. We want to start with the good stuff and get people locked into the show. So why don't we start with the game of the week, which is Ohio State at Notre Dame. I mean, arguably the game of the week. We have some other really big ones too.
2 top 10 teams. I'll give you the game of the week.
Yeah, 2 top 10 2 top 10 teams in a game at Notre Dame. I am going to it. I'm an Ohio State beat writer this weekend once again, and I'm going to a stadium that's been on my bucket list forever. So I'm super excited to go experience it. And I actually think, and I will start off with my hot take of the week, and then I'll let you guys talk, that Ohio State is in a position to lose this game or more likely to lose this game than any other, matchup with a team situated like Notre Dame has in the past, 5, 6, 7 years, unless you consider Michigan being kind of equally built, but I think that they've already proven that. So is Ohio State on upset alert? I know it's only a 3-point spread, but do either of you think that Notre Dame's going to win this game?
Ari, I'm not willing to call it upset alert. I just think Notre Dame's a better team. The wrong team's favored here. So let me get this straight. I'm supposed to believe that Kyle McCord, who has looked okay, going on the road for his first big-time atmosphere, Indiana, Shout out Brody Miller, my guy. For the first time against an experienced team, an experienced quarterback, top 10 opponent who's probably better than the 9th best team in America, and he's supposed to be a favorite on the road? No. Notre Dame wins this game, Ari. I think they might win it by double digits. I like Notre Dame in this game. If they don't, it's going to be because Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau just wreck havoc. I have some questions about Notre Dame's pass protection, but I think their corners are good enough to slow down Ohio State's receivers. Kyle McCord, I think, is good. I don't know that he's in the class of world beater just yet. So I'm buying as much stock as I can get my hands on for Notre Dame right now, because today's price is not tomorrow's price on the Irish. People might be asking if this is a top 2-3 team after this game. Notre Dame about to flex.
I agree with everything David just said, and I think the Buckeyes are going to win. I think this is you make great points. I totally buy into the fact that Notre Dame hasn't had a quarterback like Sam Hartman in these matchups, because this is the thing, right? These are the games that Notre Dame, especially under Brian Kelly, have notoriously lost. They, would be top 10 teams, or they'd even have some playoff teams, but they'd be in these games where the talent level, they couldn't quite match up, and then they'd get beat either by a little or a lot. I understand all that. I feel like Ohio State, they found a little bit of a gear in that Western Kentucky game in the second quarter, and then they took off. And I thought they'd been kind of unimpressive. I know we can talk about your tweet, Ari. If
we'll get to it.
But, I agreed with that. I have not been that impressed by McCord or Ohio State up until that point. And again, it's still Western Kentucky, but part of me just wonders if they're going to get up for this game. And even if McCord isn't as good as Hartman, if he can be, decent, and the talent level for Ohio State will then just take over. I realize it's at Notre Dame. Pete Sampson wrote a great piece this week about how Notre Dame home games against big teams like this haven't always worked out for them because the opposing team's fans travel so well. The Georgia one's notorious. I was at the game that Cincinnati beat Notre Dame in South Bend the year Cincinnati went to the playoff, and it wasn't.
That was
quite
the day
level.
the day after my daughter was born. We watched that in the hospital with her.
Yeah,
and I was thinking about you the whole time.
I appreciate that. It wasn't quite the level of the Georgia game, but like the Cincinnati fans showed up for that, and there were moments where you could really hear the Cincinnati crowd. I think as much as Notre Dame's trying to battle that, there's still going to be a significant amount of Ohio State fans there. And so that, I just feel like the way that everyone's going to be up for that game, in the end, the Ohio State talent might win out. But I could also see a scenario where it's a tight game, and even if Ohio State wins, or whichever way it goes, we're talking about whoever wins is a top 5, legit playoff contender, but whoever loses is still like a top 10 outside playoff contender, because both these teams might be at that level.
Wow, I've got a lot to unpack here, but let's first start with some trivia. And I don't know if you guys listen to Stars Matter, but you want to know why Notre Dame's an underdog, Dave? Because you seem curious about it. I'm going to tell you. Guess how many top 100 players?
Stats,
yeah, guess how many top 100 players are on Ohio State's offense out of their starting 11? How many of the 11?
0.
It's 7. But keep the same energy for the next part. How many top 100 players on Notre Dame's defense?
0
out of the 11. 0. It's a 7-0 advantage. So as a statistical analysis breaks out here, if you want to understand why Notre Dame is a dog, it's because Ohio State had, like, their 8th best player on their offense was higher rated than their best player on defense. Now, that doesn't always equate to better teams, and that's what gets me to the next point here. I watched Ohio State play all 3 of their games. I don't know what it is about that team, but I cannot break the habit of watching them because it was such a big part of my life for the past 10 years. So I've watched that's 12 quarters of Ohio State football this year. The first 8 were like gouging my eyes out boring. Like, they didn't seem like they wanted to play. They weren't interested in lighting up the scoreboard. There was 0 havoc whatsoever in the Youngstown State game against a FCS opponent that they should be throwing around like they were playing a JV team from high school. And in the first quarter of the Western Kentucky game, it kind of seemed like that was headed in the same direction. I posted a tweet before the second quarter onslaught that Justin is referring to, saying that it looked like if Ohio State didn't wake up, that they could lose to Notre Dame because they lacked the juice, or something similar to that. I don't remember what the whole tweet said, but after the game was over, it went viral in the Ohio State sphere, like a lot of tweets do, because people were mad. Like, how could you possibly think this if you watched the game, not realizing that the tweet was fired before they went crazy in the second quarter. So my question or my thought process is that I think that Ohio State dwarfs Notre Dame, like so many teams in this situation have before in terms of total roster talent. My real question is whether or not Ohio State has a better football team than them. That to me is a major discussion point. So right now, looking through the first 3 weeks of the Notre Dame season and looking through the first 3 weeks of the Ohio State season, Notre Dame to me seems to be a more functional, good football team. And they are at home and they're getting points. And it goes against every fiber of my being as a human being to pick against the team that has such a stark talent advantage. But I'm starting to learn from losing a lot of bets because of that strong angst or that strong desire to bet on the team that has much more talent, that sometimes the talent total doesn't necessarily equate to better football teams. Now, here's the one thing that I would be afraid of and why I wouldn't play the game. I'm going to pick the game. I'm not going to play it. First of all, because I'm going. But secondly, if Ohio State wakes up and decides it wants to play good, functional, aggressive, passionate football, they could kill Notre Dame by 40 points. Like, I think they are
40. No, I'll give you
maybe not 40, 2 or 3.
I'll give you 2 touchdowns.
But what I'm saying is if they play Ohio State functional and they access their talent, they are an infinitely better equipped talent-wise football team. That said, all they have been is dysfunctional through 2 games, 2.5 games,
2 and 1 quarter games.
And it's how much do you want to trust a quarter? Because they weren't that great in the second half against Western Kentucky either. I mean, the game was over. There was nothing to do. I'm not saying that's a problem. But how much trust do you want to put into that second quarter of the Western Kentucky game? I think that, to me, is what kind of makes your decision here.
I just I just don't care about, like, it matters how you play in those games, but I just think I want to see what you have and what you're capable of and what you do, against the Western Kentucky or against a Navy. It's kind of like, But I think ultimately, NC State is a pretty good team. I think Navy is a lot better than people think. And Notre Dame looks like world beaters. And I think they're about to make people recognize that, because you can sort of shrug off NC State. You can shrug off Navy. But you can't shrug this one off. And I think you're about to see a Notre Dame flex here, Ari.
Ari, I've seen you not at a game when you have played it and have money on it. What would it be like if you obviously, integrity wise, you clearly don't want to do that. What would it be like if you were in a press box watching a game that you had some stake in?
Oh, I hold it together. Okay. Listen, when you have a wife and a kid, you got to be able to pretend that nothing's bothering you. Okay. This is a skill. Like, I'll be watching a football game that I've got some cheddar on, and my wife will be in the kitchen, like cooking or something. And she'll look up at the TV, and let's just say like it's a scoop and score, and the team that I bet on was the team that fumbled it. And my wife will go, "Oh my God, that's a terrible play by that other team." And I'll be like, "I know, honey, isn't it?" Well, like having a sense of rage inside my heart that could stop a human life. So yeah, I think that I would be able to contain myself in person, especially because I have to contain myself in my house, because my wife has no idea where the money's going or what games are being bet at any given time.
All right, we got to get you a Truman Show situation. We have to. I need this in my life.
I think that people, like, if people knew my wife, her interests, like her temperament as a person, and then like, this is kind of who I am. So if you listen to the show, like, I'm not faking anything. It's a really interesting dynamic.
My favorite, Ari. So this off season, my wife and I went down to Dallas, and part of our trip was we stopped at Ari's house. Ari, anytime I bring you up, my wife laughs about the fact that you gave your daughter some scalding hot food.
It was an accident.
Yeah. I don't remember what the food was, but you put some food in the microwave and it was like steaming, and you gave it straight to your daughter and she ate it. It was like, I don't remember what she did, if she like yelled or stopped eating it or started crying. I can't remember.
What happened was, I think it was mashed potatoes, and I swirled it up, and there was a portion
That's
of
a
the mashed
fickle
potatoes.
microwave food. Mashed
Well,
potatoes are a fickle
it
microwave
wasn't
food.
that I'm because people are going to think now that you don't know not to give your kids scalding hot food. I
think you
do.
just were distracted.
I was either distracted, but I think that it was also like, you know how when you put mashed potatoes into a microwave, like a part of it might be hot and then the other part might be cold?
You have to.
I think I tried. I didn't swirl it well enough, and it was just like a disaster. My wife was not home to see that, thank God. But and in the time since, you can tell your wife that I haven't burned my daughter's mouth. So
That's good.
I think that the 40-point win obviously was a little hyperbolic. My only point is, if Ohio State turns it on and plays the game that they are capable of, kind of the same way they did in Georgia or against Georgia in the playoff last year, Notre Dame can't keep up athletically. So the gamble that you're making is, I believe that Notre Dame is a better football team because you're not necessarily quite sure which Ohio State team is going to show up. Is the dysfunctional team that is emotionless on the sideline for a large portion of the first 2 games, the green Kyle McCord, who isn't 100% where he's going to be eventually in his career, going to have some issues, or is Ohio State going to show up that is ready to mash a top 10 opponent on the road and assert itself as the best team in the Big Ten, or the second best team with a huge clash with Michigan down the road like that?
All right, I still think Notre Dame can do a lot of the mashing, and I think you're underrating the guy who's going to touch the ball on every play for Ohio State.
No, I'm not.
Well, going in, I just think
Sam Hartman.
No. Kyle McCord. Going in and underrating how big of an issue that can be. If you're in an environment like that for the first time and you haven't looked that great, I think you're underrating that. If
here's the thing that I think that you're
underrating. They lose this game, I think McCord will be a big reason why they didn't get over the top.
When's the last time Ohio State had a bad quarterback?
It's not about a bad quarterback, though, Ari. It's about a quarterback who's not an impact player. He might not be an impact player yet. He might grow into one. I don't think he's an impact player. I don't think he's a guy that wins you games. I think he's a guy that can not lose you a game, but I don't think he's there yet. And I don't think you're going to see that performance against a team. Notre Dame is not the 9th best team in America. They're better than that. Against a team like that on the road with good corners. I just, you're
well, here's the one thing that I'll say to you that I think you're going to like. I think this might be the first time since the 2016 college football playoff where Ohio State didn't go into the game with a clear advantage or a clear discussion point on who has the better quarterback. The last time this happened was when Ohio State had JT Barrett and they were playing Deshaun Watson's Clemson. In that game, if I remember correctly. And every time since, even when they played Trevor Lawrence, they had college football version of Justin Fields on their team. So it will be very interesting. And I think like the idea of, not pro Justin Fields.
So we have to specify now, right?
I don't well, he was very good in college. I don't know what's going on in Chicagoland, but that's especially this week, an epic disaster that you can go listen to on the NFL shows. I don't know what it would be like to be a Chicago Bears beat writer this week, but can Ohio State win a football game where they don't have a clear and identifiable advantage at the quarterback position, or at the very least have a quarterback that is maybe as good as the other teams?
We'll find out. I just think people are somehow still underrating Notre Dame. I think Ohio State is good. I think Ohio State is definitely one of the 10 best teams in the country, maybe one of the 5 best teams in the country. But in this situation, I think people are just sort of rolling their eyes at, same Notre Dame. They can't get over the top. I think people are really underrating Notre Dame's offensive line, who controls this game.
But you have to also acknowledge that the reason why Notre Dame hasn't been able to win these games still persists in this one. Like that issue hasn't been solved.
Talent? You're talking about talent?
Yeah, the reason why they get their ass kicked every time they play a team that's situated like this.
But
when's the last time they've beat?
All right, Notre Dame feels like mini Michigan to me in a little bit, like with a better quarterback. I think they're going to be able to run the ball against Ohio State, and I think they're composed in a way. You get the ball to Audric Estime, and you can grind out a bunch of yards, control the game, and I think that is why Notre Dame wins this game. It's not so much that Sam Hartman's going to throw for 400 yards. It's that you can control the game that way, and that's why Notre Dame wins this game.
Listen, Dave, I'm playing devil's advocate here. My official pick is Notre Dame +3. I don't know why I think that they're a more functional team. I'm just trying to dissuade people. I've seen this before. Like I went into the Georgia game last year with Ohio State, Georgia, saying, I don't know how any single person on the face of the earth can pick Ohio State to cover in this game or win this game. And then Ohio State played like a Clash of the Titans type situation where they were a field goal away from beating the back-to-back national champion. When the team with a talented roster like that turns it on, there's no stopping it. It might not be 40 points, but if they turn it on, they're going to kick their ass.
You might be right.
That said,
I'll give you that.
Notre Dame +3 is my pick. What do you guys have?
Notre Dame outright.
I'm pretty shocked to hear that, Dave. What about you, Justin?
I'm
You have
taking
Ohio State?
Yeah,
To cover or just to win?
to cover.
Okay, and one little mini tangent that we have to go through here. Urban Meyer got to talking with Ohio State reporter Tim May on a podcast, and he said something about scheduling that might be of interest to you in this game and in college football in general. Let's hear what he had to say.
I remember one time they were talking about playing a Mid-America school, and the administration and the alumni said, "There's no way we'll do that. We're never going to play a lesser opponent. We're Notre Dame." Now you look at their scheduling like, wait a minute. They're playing all kinds of teams. They're playing Tennessee State the other day. That would have never ever happened. And then the other thing is, you look. Now you're in a 12-game playoff starting next year, and I think these games are going to go away, and I'm scared about that. They should play. Look at the team up in Ann Arbor. That schedule, that you shouldn't be allowed to play that schedule.
Yeah.
Georgia's playing a schedule, then that, and at the end of the day, you're supposed to be penalized for that. They're not.
Well, let me just tell you guys before we get into the scheduling thing that Tim May, the man who was interviewing Urban Meyer in that interview, gave me a stock tip right before COVID to buy Neo, the Asian Tesla car maker. I bought it at 2 and it shot to 66 like 6 months later. So anything that guy does is good in my book. So I'm not criticizing Tim May for that reason. But you guys, I don't know. Scheduling to me and complaining about it is such a weird thing to do. Because first of all, the scheduling is done 10 years in advance most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even know how good a team is going to be when you schedule it. And then also, everybody plays lesser opponents. Some people play big time matchups more often than not. But it's just like, wasn't Georgia supposed to play Oklahoma this year?
They were supposed. Here's the thing: he's not wrong about this year. But if you're gonna pick a fight with scheduling, Georgia and Michigan are not the schools to do it. He's right this year, and they're going to be penalized for that by the committee. The committee is going to roll their eyes at the schedule. But as a philosophical thing, first of all, he's totally wrong that they're going to go away. There are going to be more of those games because you don't need to go undefeated. You need quality wins, and the committee has done a pretty good job in its existence of playing that out. But Michigan, this year is bad. Next year, Texas, then at Oklahoma. Then Oklahoma, then at Texas the next 4 years. They also had a road trip to Washington on their schedule. Obviously, that one will be going away with the Big Ten. Some schools do this. Baylor, under Art Browse, was philosophically ripped for this every single year because that was a philosophy thing. We're not going to play good teams. We're going to score 70, and then we're going to get into conference play. But Michigan doesn't do this. Georgia does not do this. Georgia went to Notre Dame. Who did Georgia play last year? Georgia opens the season with
Clemson
Oregon.
recently?
Well, yeah, I don't know if they played Clemson, but they opened the season with Oregon. Come on,
didn't the SEC
Georgia
make
played
them cancel
Clemson 2 years ago?
That's what I thought. And didn't the SEC
that's right.
make
That was the game where
Georgia
no offensive touchdowns were scored.
The SEC
Hey,
made
Dave,
Georgia
do you know
cancel the Oklahoma game.
why the Georgia OU game got canceled, but Texas Alabama didn't?
Yes, because Texas Alabama is a return game, so it's 2 games back to back. If they had played the Oklahoma game this year, there'd be no return game, essentially. So, they were not going to be able to fulfill that contract. And I don't know. I guess in theory, you could have played it, but it was the opening part of a home and home that would not have featured the second and home.
The second half.
But Texas Alabama
got it. They already played the first one. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing that I thought was interesting about Urban Meyer's point there was that I covered the team in 2015 that he coached that legitimately was left out of the playoff because they didn't have any quality wins. The 2015 team played Virginia Tech on the road. That was the Braxton Miller spin move. Mm-hmm. But then the rest of their non-conference schedule was Hawaii, Northern Illinois, Western Michigan. Then they played Indiana, Maryland, Penn State, Rutgers, Minnesota, Illinois before losing that Michigan State game that kept them out. It's hilarious to me because I know Ohio State's done a pretty good job of non-conference scheduling. I mean, since 05, they've played Miami home and homes. They've played USC home and homes. They have the Notre Dame one here. They've played Oklahoma. Like they do a pretty good job of having at least one big time non-conference game every year. But it's not like Ohio State's like they play 3 games that they could possibly lose a year, even on down years. Like they're not like the epitome of scheduling either. So
Yeah.
I think avoiding Power 5 non-conference play is just kind of, what it is. But I do really think that in this day and age, and maybe we're only going to get this for one more year, but if you don't have a quality win, that really does keep you out.
It's
if there's
huge.
a debate to be had.
It's huge.
So, proceed at your own risk there, and we'll go there. We'll go to a break here pretty quickly, and then we'll get right back to the rest of the picks.
These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs can help you find the right people for your team faster and for free. And much like with college football, when you're hiring, the individual that you may bring on your team, you want them to have the skills and the knowledge required to help your team achieve their goals. And LinkedIn can help you do that. And also with LinkedIn, when you add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile, it will help you spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs can help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/CFB23. Those are the letters CFB and the numbers 23. That's linkedin.com/CFB23 to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
I'm telling you, there's nothing like getting out of the shower with a smooth face, smooth dome, feeling fresh. To quote Deion Sanders, you look good, you play good. That's relevant in a number of avenues. The state of my hairline and facial hair demands frequent clean shaves, and Harry's provides them beautifully. But no matter why you shave, Harry's has you covered for the best shave of your life at a price you'll love. From their legendary, high-quality razors to skin products like exfoliating face wash and hydrating lotion, Harry's gives you a premium shave without the premium price tag. Get better quality and a better price than other razors when you get Harry's delivered right to your door. I've been using them for years, long before they were a sponsor, and they became a sponsor after I got off on a tangent about how much I love them, because it's true. The packaging is cool, the razor's substantial, a lot surer in your hand than disposable trash. That's literally trash. That's why they call it disposable. Smooth shave, smooth face, gets you ready to go about your day. And the value of the starter set is, to quote PJ Fleck, elite. It's a $13 value for just $3 at harrys.com/Saturday. That gets you a 5-blade German-engineered razor, weighted handle, foaming shave gel, and a travel cover. I use that travel cover every time I'm on the road for games on the weekends. Get your best shave ever this fall with Harry's razors and skincare products. Get a $13 starter set for just $3 at harrys.com/Saturday. That's harrys.com/Saturday for a $3 starter set.
All right, guys, welcome back. Thanks so much for tuning in to another edition of Until Saturday's Picks Show. We have a lot more top 25 matchup games to get through. Justin, this is what we've all been waiting for, and I'm going to kick it right off to you first before Dave's veins start popping out of his neck again, because we're talking about Colorado. Oregon is going to be laying 20.5 points against number 19 Colorado. It's a 10 versus 19 matchup, 3:30 on ABC. What is your take on the Bulldogs, the Buffaloes so far this year, and do you think that this is the reckoning week?
Yeah, like I wrote in the kind of matchups thing I wrote this week, like, is this the week that the Coach Prime supernova fizzles out? Certainly not from like an attention standpoint, but just an on the field competitive standpoint. I think 20.5 points is a lot. I think it opened at 19. I saw it got to 21 at some point. That seems like too much for me. This is, kind of the same talk that everyone had about Colorado heading into that TCU opener, where everyone thought they were going to get rolled and the Dion shine was going to completely go away. And, I'm not ready to pick that Colorado is going to win this game at Oregon, but I can't get myself to a point thinking where Oregon's going to win by 3 touchdowns.
I'm with you. I think people saw a lot of 9 million to be exact, saw Colorado play awful against Colorado State. That's the worst they've played all season. That's just reality of what it was. And they're better than that. They're, how good is Colorado? I think is still a really complicated question that we don't have an answer to. But they're not 21 points worse than Oregon. I think Oregon's really, really good. I think this game is going to have about a bajillion points. I was wondering what the over-under was, and my thought was, are we going to sniff the 80s? We've seen that a couple times over the last 5 years, and 70 seems low for this game. I think the only way that it stays under 70 is if Colorado just can't block at all, and Shedeur just can't get any time to do anything. But Oregon's going to get their points for sure. We'll see about Colorado. Colorado's not good at corner. That's doubly true without Travis Hunter, who missed this game with a lacerated liver. Please don't send any death threats to me or Henry Blackburn or anybody. But that's just the reality of the situation. TCU had the receivers to take advantage of that. They didn't. Chandler Morris didn't play well enough in that game. Nebraska didn't have the personnel to take advantage of that. Oregon has the personnel. Troy Franklin, absolute dog. We'll see about Gary Bryant Jr. and Tez Johnson. But, Will Stein's been killing it. They haven't missed Kenny Dillingham that much. So I just think Oregon's going to score at will in this game. Colorado's going to score 2. I have some questions about the offensive line, but I'm with Justin. 20.5 that's too many. I think Colorado scores enough points to get within that number.
I really, really have a hard time with this because I've been kind of on the fade Colorado bandwagon from the beginning of the year.
How's that going for you?
It hadn't been going real well for me. Last week went a little bit better than usual because I think I was, there's something weird about that line and how everybody was just hammering Colorado after the sunglasses comment. And it didn't move.
Was it like 92% of the money was on Colorado?
Yeah, everybody was on Colorado, and the spread wouldn't go over 24.5 because the casinos didn't want to take sharp action over 24, which kind of got my antennas up of like, okay, there's another game that we're picking this week where something similar is happening, that like the Clemson Florida State game, which we'll get to, I think is kind of bizarre too. But the notion that Colorado is actually playing a team with elite level athletes for the first time this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I mean, like at the skill positions
and experience
is going to be really, really tough to overcome. And it's like, kind of like one of these deals where if you just showed me this on paper before I knew any of the, previous results, I would be pretty quick to just go ahead and choose Oregon to cover the points, but I've been doing it every single week and I've been wrong. So, now the popular play, at least on the picks stuff that we were doing on our website, is everybody's picking Oregon to cover. Now it's like, okay, well, if everybody thinks Oregon's going to win by 100, then I guess Colorado is the side that I'm going to play here. So tired of getting burned. 20.5 points is a lot. I'm a little bit worried that Travis Hunter is not playing in this game, because like Weaver's a really good player. They have some studs. Shedeur's been on the money. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Like, I wonder if this is a Colorado doesn't have the horses game that we actually
win. I think you're right, but the horses 20, and that's a lot of points, man. And I still think TCU,
the team that you're playing, can score on every possession. That's the thing. It's like, it seems like a lot of points, but if the score is 28-7 at the end of the first quarter, like they already covered the spread.
I'm with you
every time. We'll see.
I'm with you guys on Oregon though, but they played at Texas Tech, which tough environment. Texas Tech, despite an 0-2 start, I think is a decent team. They scored 38 points. Oregon scored 38 points, and 6 of those were on a pick 6 at the end of the game that Texas Tech gifted them. So yeah, exactly. So I think Bo Nix is good. I think their offense is really good. I think their defense is much better compared to Colorado's defense, obviously. But I don't think it's like a guarantee they're just going to put up 56 points or something like that. They didn't do it week 2.
By the way, we gotta talk about Deion's overtime strategy. This has been it got glossed over because they won the game. So Shedeur did not mess up the coin toss. Deion explicitly said, and he talked about it Tuesdays. Like, I can't believe nobody's asked me about this. They want the ball first to put pressure on the opponent, and he trusts Shedeur, with basically his life at this point. So I'm curious. So his concept,
which is why everybody was freaking out of like, why does Colorado have the ball again after they scored?
Well, his belief is that the value of the pressure that you put on an opponent outvalues getting 25% more plays to convert a first round. This seems insane to me. I'm not a math guy, but I would like 4 plays guaranteed to get a first down and to score a touchdown than this sort of idea that you can put pressure on a team in a game where there's 87 points. I totally disagree with Dion on this concept. I get where he's coming from, and it worked out for him, but I don't know that Colorado State was just like, under pressure, and they got, more likely if you take defense first, instead of trying to throw up a Hail Mary, they're kicking a field goal there. It seems to me, I'd like to maybe poll some coaches on this. You don't ever see anybody go offense first, even teams.
Well, because everybody's all about the simple math of the analytics of this, and that's you'd rather have 4 downs to get a first down than 3.
Psychology over math is what we're.
But the thing too that I want to know about the psychology here, and Justin, tell me what you think about this. If you do opt to go first with the ball because you want to put pressure on your opponent, and that's kind of how you feel, that's what Dion feels, then do you take the ball knowing that it's 4 down territory from the beginning?
Yeah, probably. I feel like we wrote something about this on The Athletic last year. I thought someone did the go on offense first.
Maybe
it was
you're
either
right.
Bruce or Max wrote about it.
Yeah.
I can't remember the team.
It was a Mac game, I think, that somebody did it and everyone was freaking out.
Maybe it was Texas Tech. It could have been Texas Tech.
I mean, they would fit that, idea, right? But no, I'm with you, Ari. If you're gonna do it, like I can get my mind around that logic of we're gonna score, especially if you're a team like Colorado and Dion.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't see how you go out there and on 3rd and 7 from the 25 you opt to kick a field goal, because then it feels like it takes a lot. It puts so much pressure on your defense to then go out there and feel like you have to hold them to that.
I'm fascinated. We just like, it's basically Dion bucking what is generally accepted to be common sense in the sport. But he does that in 100 different other ways. Just add this to the list.
But does that change depending on who your opponent is too? Like, I'm sure Dion went into overtime knowing that Colorado State couldn't stop him.
I've asked Lane Kiffin about this, who's probably one of, if not the most aggressive coach, and he would argue no. He would argue if you're playing a better opponent, then you go for it even more. Basically, like that you would need to.
Because 3's not going to win it anyway.
Basically, so I think. Like, some people might say yes, if you're playing, if he was playing Alabama instead of Colorado State, maybe he doesn't do it that way, but I think he probably still would have.
Is there any logic to the idea that, all right, say you go out there and get 3 when you have the ball first, that the other team like gets conservative and settles a little bit because they know they only need 3, and so instead of trying to come out second and score a touchdown and win the game, they get a little more conservative? That's like really psychological mind game stuff that maybe Dion is 3D chess.
I don't know. It just seemed weird in the moment. I thought maybe they botched the coin toss because I think Shador picked the.
It was so weird that we didn't know what was going on with who was on offense.
The mic was broken. The mic wasn't working on the.
And it was 2 a.m. East Coast time.
Yeah,
so everyone
I
was
couldn't hear exactly what was happening. So, it's interesting. It's a weird thing, but I'm intrigued to see how this plays out in the future. Ari, so I guess so what? So we have all 3 of us are on Colorado this week.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
I don't love that.
I think we're gonna know.
Justin taking Ohio State only made me more emboldened on Notre Dame.
Yeah. So we'll see. But hey, you know what? The question I have, and then we'll move on, and we'll go a little bit quicker for the rest of the games. But these are the 2 big ones. If Colorado were to lose 56-14 or something, and they just got their ass kicked,
it's on the table.
And I'm not saying I think that's going to happen, but if it did, what does that mean for how fans consume Colorado? Like, are they like getting more and more interesting because they keep winning games and it keeps getting more and more higher stakes? Or do you think that they're already at a point where they're must-watch television, even if they're a 2 or 3 loss team with blowout losses to USC and Oregon? Like,
well, I think it depends on what you do to USC. If you beat USC or you lose to USC by a touchdown, that's different. If you get beat 56-14 in this game and then you get beat 61-13 a week later, then you're in kind of a weird spot where you're going to play out the rest of the season. You're probably going to a bowl game. People, there's a gawk factor of the Dion, but I don't think anybody takes you seriously if you do that.
That's the thing.
Colorado's too, forcing you to take them seriously these first 3 weeks.
But the gawk factor, I think that's a good way of putting it, for the 9 million views that it got on on Saturday night.
Mhm.
That does not exist again if they get their ass kicked on Saturday. Like, I think that like the curiosity
If
of whether
they're in
Colorado.
a tight game with USC, it does, Ari. If they might.
No, I'm
if
saying
they
like
go-
against a team that no one cares about. They're playing
Oh,
Colorado
no,
State. Like
no.
if they lose by 100 to one of these next two games, and then they get into a triple overtime game with Stanford, people are going to watch. But the excitement and the edge of your seat feeling that we all felt watching that game goes away because there's still a general. The thing with Colorado coming into the year was that we were just generally curious to see what they were going to look like.
Yeah.
And now that curiosity has been replaced with how good are they? So I feel like we're all kind of taking it week by week, and every week has been an incredible testament to what they've built there. But like now they're playing an actual Big Daddy team.
Yep.
And I just don't know what the response to that's going to be either. So I'm taking Colorado with the points, and I feel terrible about it. I think Oregon's going to kill them.
It's on the table, but I feel pretty good about it. I think Colorado people are on fraud watch because they played so poorly against Colorado State, and Colorado State is not very good. But there might have been an element of looking ahead as well.
Or maybe Colorado is just kind of like turning into what they are, which is a team that struggles against Colorado State. Like that's the thing.
Good thing,
too.
Ari, is that we play these games, so we're gonna find out.
Yeah. Okay, another
to the ACC, Ari.
To the ACC, guys, you know it. Florida State on the road at Clemson. We had this game circled on the calendar going into the year. We did not know that Clemson would get donkey. What's
They're
the
unranked.
donkey straight? Yeah, they're unranked. They lost to Duke. whatever it is.
You're welcome, Ari, for helping you.
Thank
not
you.
Get fired.
Yeah, Florida minus 2.5. Sorry, Florida State minus 2.5. Does any of you believe that Clemson has a pulse still, or is it just like what's going on here?
Pulse is generous. I just don't think they're fixed, and I think Florida State is still really good. I still think Florida State is a playoff team. I don't particularly care about the BC game. I think they got that game in hand and fell asleep. Clemson still looks like a team to me that needs to hit like the NOS button in Fast and the Furious to get to 24 to 30 points against functional teams. And Florida State is a lot more than functional on both sides of the ball. And even in Death Valley, in a game that defines your season in a lot of ways, one of these teams has a proven quarterback and real weapons and one does not. I mean, it's crazy to me that I thought this line would be like a touchdown. I think Florida State wins this thing by double digits.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm going Florida State as well. And I realize it was week 1, but I think it's hard to watch what Florida State did to LSU and then what Clemson did against Duke and feel like this is going to be a field goal game, even at Clemson. Clemson just feels so much like check down to Will Shipley. That's their entire offense right now. I don't think that's going to work against Florida State. I do think it's interesting. It feels like Florida State has already been anointed as like the new ACC power. They're the potential playoff this team this year. Clemson beat them last year at Florida State, and Clemson has won 7 in a row against Florida State. So I still think Florida State's going to win and cover this year, but it feels like people have already shifted in their minds, like Florida State's the power, Clemson's fallen off, and at least on the field we haven't gotten between those two. We haven't gotten evidence of that yet.
Well, but Clemson had better teams in almost all those games, And I'm going to go look at talent composite right now. Clemson.
Clemson's surprisingly high, yeah.
They are
Clemson number 5, Florida State number
18
20.
or something, 19 or 20. Yeah.
So Florida State not as talented, but I think clearly a better football team.
I'm so scared because I've seen nothing from Clemson that makes me want to pick them, other than the way that the spread is moving toward them. Like you would think that the Florida State team that beat the crap out of LSU in the first week of the season is infinitely better at instrumental positions and infinitely better across the board than Clemson, despite the fact that Clemson has a stark advantage in the talent composite.
Have we seen that talent gap though? Like when I watch Clemson play, they don't feel talented.
I know.
Yeah, a lot more talented
Ari,
than Duke, let alone Florida State.
Here's what I'm going to do to make you feel better, Ari. I'm going to strap you to a chair. I'm going to go full Clockwork Orange on you, and I'm going to make you watch the Notre Dame Clemson game last year just like 15 times on repeat until the games start. And by the time the games start, you're going to be feeling great about Florida State.
This game. They have no reason to believe that Florida State wouldn't win this game and win it comfortably. I'm taking Clemson plus 2.5.
All right, that's the contrarian play.
It feels very, very weird to me that this spread is below a field goal. It feels even weirder to me that it's not being bet up past 3.
I look forward to getting a text from Ari in the third quarter.
Do you believe?
Up double digits.
Do you believe?
Do you believe? I don't know, man. This one feels weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, like, I'm 3 weeks removed from writing a column saying that I believe that Florida State can win a national championship this year, despite being number 20 in the composite ranks. I love Keon Coleman. Do we get any insight whatsoever on how Jordan Travis is doing? Because I know he had some injury scares last week. We're talking about a team that is just getting points at home, and they don't lose at home very often. So if Clemson wins this game, then the ACC is just North Carolina's conference, I guess. I don't know. We'll see. I love Florida State. I think they're a much better team. I just don't know why this. I don't know what to do here.
I kind of like the pick, Ari. I gotta say, I am with you, but I'm gonna trust my eyes on this. I'm gonna trust what I've seen.
I've lost a lot of money in my days trusting my eyes.
Yeah, but your eyes just look at the talent composite, Ari, and then your eyes.
No. I've watched Clemson football this year, and it's been really ugly to watch. That what my eyes say tells me they stink. It's kind of the same thing that's happening in the Notre Dame Ohio State matchup a little bit. It's like you've got one team that's lower in the talent composite, who looks like a more functional and together team through the first 3 weeks of the season, and I'm taking the points in the Notre Dame game. In this game, Florida State looks functional. They beat the living hell out of LSU in the first game. They sucked the SEC soul out of their chest and won by 1 million. And then last week, whatever that was, grab-ass game of the century. But Clemson is, like, hard to watch.
Yes.
Just like I thought even the FAU game where they were covering the spread in the first half, I was like, didn't they go like 3 and out or 4 and out like 4 times in that game? I don't know. I just like there's something fundamentally off there. And yes, my eyes showed me the Boston College game it was a rainy game where, people weren't playing all that hard, and Boston College was getting trounced in the third quarter. And then when Florida State wanted to go home and get out of the rain, they scored some touchdowns at the end to get close and could have won the game. They had the ball. But that to me is just, there's just something off with this. And I don't know if I need a metal detector or what.
I think you might be right, Ari. I really do. I really do think
there's something weird about this game here.
Yeah.
Okay. Another top 15 matchup. We'll go to the SEC in this game. We have Alabama laying a touchdown versus number 15 Ole Miss over under 54.5. Is this the week where Alabama puts its dumpster fire of an offense in the rearview mirror?
Ari, we need to have a frank conversation right now, because Alabama this week had a players only meeting, which means they're circling the wagons. They're back, right? They fixed it. It's a player-led team. We're going to be in good shape. Nick Saban has his leadership. But let's take a look this season, Ari. Last week, Tennessee, after 2 not fantastic outings, has a players-only meeting. They're down 26-7 at half to Florida and lost. They played terrible. Last week, Quinn Ewers asked to have a players-only meeting, which seems antithetical to the thesis of the players-only meeting. But he asked. It was granted. Whatever. Longhorns trailed early in that game, tied at 10 early in the fourth quarter with Wyoming, a week after beating Bama. Well, now Wyoming, I will say, beat the future Big 12 champion Texas Tech Red Raiders earlier this season, so it is what it is. Houston also had a players-only meeting last week, Ari, and they did not score in the second half and lost their first Big 12 game ever to TCU, 36-13. Bama, be careful. I think they survived this, but I don't think they cover. And there's a great shot that they lose this, and we are at full-on panic meter 10, sirens going off, pets' heads falling off territory.
I think we're already in pets' heads falling off territory, because when a team has been so good for as long as they've been, the one thing that I will say about this Alabama team, and I wrote about it in a column on Monday. I encourage you to go read it. I know they have offensive line issues. It's been discussed. They don't have a playmaker on the outside at the receiver position to go up and grab some passes. But the Jalen Milroe wasn't even the backup quarterback last week to now is the starter is a dysfunctional quarterback process. And I don't know what the reason for that process is. I don't know if there is some Nick Saban, Tommy Rees discussions that are going on in the background that aren't going as well as things would hope. But explain to me the psychology here between knowing what you have, might not be perfect, but knowing what you have in Jalen Milroe, him starting and playing the entire Texas game, then going into the following week on the road in rainy Tampa against a team that you should beat by 100 and taking that guy out of the entire mix completely, not even a backup. Then when the game is close in the third quarter, still not putting him in to go ice the game away because he's not even the backup. And then the following Monday coming out and announcing that he is the starter. Like, that is grade A coaching grab ass. It's weird. It doesn't make any sense. So if we are in a position right now where Alabama finally named their quarterback, there's no more discussion about who it's going to be or why it's going to be him, and they can just go into the game planning for Milroe and calling the game knowing who it's going to be and having a quarterback who can actually escape the pressure that's going to be coming after him, then maybe Alabama actually finds who they are, understands that they have offensive deficiencies and tries to go and win a football game despite that, rather than playing musical quarterbacks with no rhyme or reason for the order these guys are going in or how or why they're playing. It's just been dysfunctional to me. And the hallmark of the Alabama program under Nick Saban has been lack of dysfunction. So I don't know if the coaching carousels, assistance is catching up to them. I don't know if it's a personnel lack of evaluation of the quarterback issue. I don't know if it's an offensive line issue. Hell, if you don't know about your quarterback, your receiver, or your offensive line and your running back, I mean, Jason McClellan's a nice guy, a nice player, but he's not Derrick Henry back there. I mean, your four major offensive position groups have a developmental problem. You got Caden Proctor out there, who's a true freshman who is getting his ass kicked because he's a true freshman and he's not supposed to be out there yet. So, like, I don't know what's going on in Alabama, but, like, it is far and wide dysfunctional across the board. So, that said, I think I'm going to pick the Tide, -6.5. I think -7. I think that if you have Milroe in there and you go in playing the type of game that you do against Texas, you have a quarterback who can make some pretty throws. You have a quarterback who can extend plays, and you can just, like, not have the debate and just go out there and try to play great defense against an Ole Miss team that hasn't been known for great defense themselves and, like, score 31 points. That should be good enough to win the game. I think that Alabama's going to win the game.
And too much respect for Texas already.
Dude, your, like, Texas agenda is getting weird.
It's not an agenda. It's noting reality, Ari. It's noting reality.
All right, Justin, break the tie for us. What's your take on this?
I think this is the, like, conspiracy theorist game of the week because you mentioned all the quarterback thing. Maybe if you're, like, deep in the Alabama message boards, you understand what was going on with the Milroe not playing and now being the starter again.
I don't mean to interrupt you, Justin, but let me just say for people who don't know, and I'm going to let you continue. But the thought process or the rumor is on the internet. This is something I've seen on Twitter, apparently on Alabama message boards, that Nick Saban wants Jalen Milroe and Tommy Rees wants Tyler Buckner. And last week was a example from Nick Saban to his offensive coordinator why they have to go with Milroe. And that's why that the quarterback thing was all discombobulated. Conspiracy theory. Go ahead, Justin. But I just wanted people to, that's what everybody is saying.
I suppose if any coach has the equity to pull off a stunt like that, it would be Nick Saban. But even that seems like crazy for Nick Saban, for his offensive coordinator for all of, like, 5 months or whatever it's been. But then there was also the weird Lane Kiffin, like, saying he thought they switched defensive play, like the whole Brian Windhorse meme of Lane Kiffin in that press conference.
Why would they?
Yes. But then Nick Saban came out and refuted it. So, like, that was another conspiracy theorist thing. That was weird. We've talked about this game for 10 minutes and no one's mentioned Jackson Dart, who I think, might be, like, the best quarterback in America. No one seems to be talking about all that much. I know I kind of made the opposite argument in the Notre Dame Ohio State game, but, like, to me, Jackson Dart is the reason, I think they're going to win this game. The difference between Jackson Dart and Milroe or Buckner or Simpson and whoever, runs out there. I'm taking the Ole Miss money line, and maybe I'll look stupid because it's like Nick Saban against Lane Kiffin. Lane is not one to, like, temper his, talking during the week anyways. But the fact that he's just coming out guns blazing, retweeting reporters and himself on the whole defense, like, it makes me feel like Lane Kiffin thinks he's going to win this game even more than the get your popcorn ready game a couple years ago. So I'm taking Ole Miss money line.
I covered that game a couple years ago, and I thought Ole Miss might win that game too. They did not. They got their butts kicked.
This could be a repeat of that
Listen,
for sure.
it might be.
But
all college football gambling is overreacting to the things that happened the week before. That's all it is. And it's like, if this game were the opening game of the year, the spread might be 13.5. I think you're probably getting a touchdown equity based on the dysfunction that exists there. But if they just go back to being the team that they were playing against Texas, this is a team that could certainly win, 38-31. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe Texas is being slightly overvalued by beating a team that people hadn't figured out is not as good as they thought. I'm just throwing ideas out there. I don't.
Yeah,
know.
you keep throwing them out there, David. Hey, and every week that goes by where you're wrong, I just feel better and better, because you know what? I don't know if this is on our game list this week, but Texas plays Baylor, and it is on our game list. We'll get to that one next. Game list. But that one's, I'm a little nervous.
The last time Alabama lost 2 regular season home games was, I believe, 2007, which was Nick Saban's first year in Tuscaloosa.
Louisiana Monroe, baby. Louisiana Monroe.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, you know what? Listen, you got the Ole Miss money line. I loved you for it, man. You come on the show and you spit bars. That's what we're supposed to do. So, okay. Why don't we just go into the next game then, which would be a nice transition, which is Texas at Baylor. These are the types of games. Texas is laying 15.5, but these are the types of games that were illustrated by Dave Ubbin before the year that Texas could end up losing. And going on the road to Baylor has always just been the capital of grab ass, I feel like, for them. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what some guy from the Big 12 will be like, well, actually, Texas is 8-2 against Baylor. I don't know what the stat is, but I think Baylor beat the crap out of them a few years ago. I'm nervous. I'm nervy.
Well, I think Baylor can ugly this game up, Ari. Baylor, it sounds like Blake Shapen may not play. Is that correct?
Yeah, it seems like he's still out.
So that
and
is
Sawyer Robinson can definitely ugly up this game based on how he's played the past couple weeks.
This is gonna be ugly. I think ultimately, if you're Texas and you can just control the line of scrimmage, get Xavier Worthy in space as much as possible, but I think this is kind of weird because I feel like people are assuming that Baylor is a lot better than they are, but I think people are also assuming that about Texas. But Texas is very good, but 15.5 on the road against what I will call a bowl-ish team in conference. No. Give me Baylor in the point. I don't think Texas is in danger of losing this game, really, but that's a lot of points.
Have you watched Baylor play football this year?
I have. I watched a lot of the Utah game, and
you want to mention any of that, or do you just want to keep hating on Texas the whole time? I don't know if you.
I said Baylor is being overrated somehow, but I also think
overrated.
Yes,
the fact that they're even rated on the elemental chart is overrated. They have been awful.
It's gonna be ugly. I don't 51.5 might be. These teams might not get to 40.
Do you think it's possible that you are undervaluing Texas because of your inherent love for your Alabama team?
No, here's the thing. I think I'm the only one appropriately valuing Texas. That's the issue. I think a lot of people see the Bama game like, oh, they went on the road, they beat Bama. They're going to be, this is it. This is Texas. And I'm like, Texas is very good, but Bama is not your older brother's Bama.
But if you're properly evaluating and ranking Texas in your own mind, you don't think that this team,
I picked Texas to win that game, Ari. No,
but I'm saying in this specific game, it's a weird thing for you to think that they could win this game by 16 against a team that's been dysfunctional.
It's not weird. I just don't trust them going on the road.
What's it going to take for you to trust them? Do they have to get through the entire season before you trust them, or are you going to do this every week?
If they're showing up and they're looking like peak Texas every single week, where they're playing to their capabilities every single week, like we've seen a lot of teams do, then I will start. Give me a month. Give me 4 straight weeks of playing teams that they're better than in the Big 12, where Texas makes it very clear for 60 minutes, we're the better team, and we are going to be interested every single week.
I don't know that is a fair thing, though, because I don't think that any team does that.
A lot of teams do that, Ari. Maybe not this year, but a lot of teams do that. Ohio State does that most of the time. They might have.
I've covered them for 10 years, and there was a lot of grab ass in that 10-year
period.
There
is, but more often than not, Ari. More often.
I think that Ohio State is the example, the exact opposite of that. They've been prancing around Ohio Stadium for the past decade, playing like crap against teams that aren't very good. They win them 89 to 95% of the time.
That's the difference, Ari.
But what you said was peak, cover the spread every week, Texas, and it's like they're probably going to win their next 4 games, bud. They might not cover the spread every week, but Baylor isn't the Baylor from last year. Baylor.
That's
is
what I'm
crap
saying. I
this
think
year.
people don't realize that. Yes.
So like it seems like you don't realize it.
I do. I said Baylor's being overrated right now.
Justin, save us again from our argument. This is what's so great about having you on the show.
This is going to be a huge letdown. My thoughts on this game. I don't have nearly the gas for it that you guys do. I am fascinated by Quinn Ewers. I thought Quinn Ewers. I know Alabama, like Dave said, is not your older brother's Alabama. I thought Ewers was great in that Alabama game. I thought he made all the throws. He showed, lived up to all the hype. Showed why he could be a first-round NFL draft pick. I wrote about NFL or Big 12 quarterback play this week. The advanced metrics on Quinn Ewers are not great. Even some of the like basic metrics, his completion percentage, yards per attempt, he's in kind of the middle of the Big 12. But if you look at like his accuracy on throws 20 plus yards down the field or 15 plus yards down the field, he is not playing like the type of player he looked like in that Alabama game, and like he gets talked about because of his recruiting rating and all that kind of stuff. So I would like to see Quinn Ewers be a lot more consistent. A lot of his yards have come yards after the catch because his wide receivers are really good, so that makes sense. But I would like to see him look more like that Alabama game week in and week out, and I think that will kind of help Texas do what David talked about, which is look like that type of team every week. On the other hand, I think Baylor's bad. They were kind of my dark horse for, potential Big 12 sleeper coming into the season. I don't think they have great depth. I think the Blake Shapen injuries really hurt them. Sawyer Robinson, who I liked when they got him out of the portal, has just not been good at all. He has like a 22% off target percentage so far through, according to True Media through these first few weeks. So as much as I do think Texas is going to trip up in one of these conference games against TCU or Texas Tech or something like that, they're going to lose a game they shouldn't lose. I don't think it's going to be this week. I'm taking Texas, and I think they're going to cover too. I don't think Baylor has it figured out yet.
Everything that he just said, except that they're going to lose a game they shouldn't. Texas is going to cover. I think that they are a very good football team with great skill position talent and improving quarterback and great line play. I don't know what else you need.
All right, we're going to have to go live when Texas loses a Big 12 game, like immediately.
I hope that it's one of these games where I'm on an airplane, or when it happens that I'm unavailable.
You better.
I got to tell you guys, when Wyoming was tied in the third quarter last week, I was like, "Oh shit, guys, I can't." My heart cannot handle it. You also too. You got to give me some credit for going this far out on a limb for like you guys think that I'm unaware of the history of this. like I'm like walking through the day not knowing what Texas has been the last 10, 15 years. I know I'm aware. I just think that this team is different, and until they do it again, they are different.
For people who say I'm a Texas hater, I picked them to beat Alabama straight up, Ari, and they did exactly that.
They don't care. They don't care if you say that.
Okay, that's fine.
It's not a compliment to say I think they're going to beat Alabama, but Alabama stinks and they're definitely going to lose.
It's not about complimenting. It's about looking at what I see and saying I don't think this team has the personality to show up every week. That's the issue.
Yeah, and you made that distinction and that judgment before the year started when there was no way you could have done that. So we'll see if that's right.
What?
But you did it before the season.
All right, we got to move on. We got to move on.
You don't know the temperament and the distinction of a team before they've taken the field one time?
I've watched enough Texas football to know that we haven't seen a Texas team that showed up every single week in like 15 years. And I don't think that you have a coaching staff that has a team that is a proven coaching staff that can get a team to show up and play to its ability every single week. You guys can laugh about the Sarks never won 10 games thing. But if that doesn't set off every alarm bell, and I have yet to see a reason why this Texas team is different. They're slightly more talented than previous years, but not like another.
They're balanced this year.
This is like mom and dad arguing at the dinner table, and I'm just like trying to eat these scalding mashed potatoes without burning my mouth.
Yeah, burn your mouth. All right, guys, this is going to be a 4-hour podcast. If we
pretty much
a little bit. So okay, let's go. Let's go. Just speed round real quick. I'm going to give you the game. Give me your pick. Okay. Texas A&M -7.5 against Auburn. It's a noon game. On the road at Auburn. Is A&M going to cover the spread?
Probably not. Auburn is very spunky, and I think if you lose this game and you're A&M, I think I'm out on the whole Jimbo experiment. I think you have to be. There's no excuses. I think Auburn is playing with, a tough situation. year one under Hugh Freeze. They've portaled pretty well, but you still don't have the roster that you think that you want to have. And yet I think Auburn is going to be a tough out for some people. I think they're a lot like Mizzou in that I don't really believe in their ceiling, but you better show up or they will beat you. And so I think A&M's better than they showed. I think they can fix themselves defensively, but Hugh Freeze can scheme up some ball plays. I'm nervous for the Aggies. I think they win, but give me Auburn plus 7.5.
Yeah, I'm with you, Ubben. Texas A&M 1-7 in the last 8 games against power conference opponents. That doesn't include the oink doink game they won against Arkansas. That doesn't include losing to App State last year. Yeah, because they're not power conference. So, I am another thing I'm eternally fascinated by is the whole Jimbo $77 million buyout. Is he going to survive? Are they going to pony up for that? But I just don't have any confidence in this team. I was at the Texas A&M Miami game. Texas A&M gets a block punt early. They go up 7-0. That Miami team's decent, but nothing great. It felt like they should have been in control of that game. Miami comes out in the second half and just takes it to them. Get a kick return for a touchdown. Got a couple turnovers. I was not impressed at all with Texas A&M in that game. I do think it's going to be like a field goal game. I'm going to give the edge to Texas A&M to win, but I'd be taking Auburn and the points in this one.
My advice to Jimbo is cross your T's, dot your I's, be a choir boy. Because, buddy, I've seen this before. Oil money will pay for a lot, but a good lawyer can do some other magic. So I would be very, very careful, Jimbo.
No FaceTimes, Jimbo.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's really, really funny that we spent the entire offseason talking about Texas A&M's offense and whether, Bobby Petrino and Jimbo can get along, and then their defense just stinks now.
I think the defense might be okay. The defense, I think, can rebound. They have the personnel.
They always have the personnel, Dave.
Yeah, but we've seen, it's not like DJ Durkin is new to this. They played really badly, but I also think Miami is really, really good offensively. So I don't think people realized how much better they were. I saw it. Not like they're gonna be great, but I don't think A&M has this disaster of a defense.
When you were at the game, Justin, was it hard for you to realize it was 6 hours because Miami kept scoring and the clock kept stopping?
It was a long game. Then there was that really bad injury at the end, which the game was basically over, but they had to pause it for that. So no, it was a lot of talk on The Athletic today about time of games and clock and all that kind of stuff. That one was one that it was a long one.
Well, the clock does stop after touchdowns, and Miami scored a lot of them. So we'll see how it goes when they get this SEC opponent. But I'm with you guys. I like Auburn, and it's unfortunate because A&M fans, you might think that they're weird or whatever. I'm married to a woman who's in the Aggie cult,
which is why you support them, right? I believe that was the storyline at one point.
Yeah, in my comment section, I wrote a story saying, "Here's something about why A&M can be good," and everyone was talking well, his wife went there and everything, and then I wrote why Texas should make the playoff this year, and then there was another thing about how my wife went to Texas, and then lastly I wrote another story, and I can't remember who it was about, but apparently they came up with this idea where she went to SMU and her dad's a booster for A&M or something. It was it's in the comments. Go find
how many degrees does she have?
She's really, really smart and has a lot of degrees.
My favorite conspiracy theory is when I was at ESPN, Iowa State fans were very mad at me for a variety of reasons. And a bunch of them came up with the idea that I hated Iowa State because my dad went there, which he did, but that I hated my dad, who was a co-best man at my wedding.
Yeah. Well, hey,
that was a good conspiracy theory.
What's so funny is like these people actually believe that stuff. Like the people who write it, I think, believe it. Like that's the scariest part.
I think that's
it's
true.
Okay, let's move on to a few more games. I wanted to at least spend a few minutes on this, and forgive us, the podcast is long this week because it's a great slate with a lot of really interesting games. But I do find it funny, and Justin alluded to this at the beginning of the show, that the Pac-12 is on its way out, but we do have Oregon State -3 at Washington State, which is a 7 p.m. Eastern game on Fox, pitting two top 21 teams, 14 versus 21. And these are the two teams that are being left out of the entire discussion as everything goes on. And it's like a celebration of yesteryear, a little bit of like, let's give them the time and the flowers that they deserve because they're both ranked. They're both pesky teams that are fun to watch. And it's just a damn shame what happened to them.
think Washington's not. I'm just going to apologize before I say this. I think Washington State might be kind of overvalued. I think Oregon State is probably one of the 20 best teams in the country. I was on them. I think they win 10 games again this year. I didn't really have that high expectations for DJ Uyunglele. I just think they're really good on the lines. And when you're really good on the lines, your ceiling's pretty high. And I think they're going to be able to control some games against these high-powered offenses and score some points themselves. So, I think Washington State is competent, but I just think Oregon State might be like very, very good. Better offensive line, better scheme. And also, Ari, I'm going to get their fans mad at me again. I know he's a West Coast guy, an Oregon State guy. If I was Michigan State, I'd be looking hard at Jonathan Smith. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think anybody would. I mean, 5 years ago, I think if you would have made a list of most hopeless programs, you might find both of these teams in the top 10 in terms of just where they are geographically. Like, that's the thing. It's like there's a disconnect between how good both of these teams are on the field this year and whether or not they're a valuable asset to a Power 5 conference or a power conference based on their TV equity. So those are two separate things. But that doesn't mean that we can't watch these two teams play and celebrate them. And I also think, too, that like it could be an interesting conspiracy theory that like Clemson just ran DJU into the ground and now like maybe he's like off to have a year where he gets drafted and is a big body specimen with a huge arm, because listen,
I don't know about drafted, but competent college quarterback.
He could be drafted, maybe, right?
Could be.
He has a huge arm, doesn't he?
Yes.
He's a big-bodied guy with a huge arm. I think that he's a draftable prospect. Justin, what's your take on this one?
Yeah, no, I love Cam Ward. I was impressed. I think Wisconsin's kind of stumbled a little bit, but I was impressed with the way they went there and beat Wisconsin. But I agree. I think DJ's played well, and because of the discrepancy in how good the offensive and defensive lines are for Oregon State, I think even if DJ can't quite match like the raw numbers Cam Ward puts up, I think that's going to be good enough for Oregon State to pull this one out even on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm with you guys on Oregon State, but hopefully it's a celebration of Pac-12 football. Okay, guys, I think we have one more here. We have two more. Quickly. Three more. But we'll just do it quickly. Just give me the number. Who do you like? Utah -4.5 against UCLA.
Justin, I'll let you take it first.
So, I wrote this week, if Jackson Dart's the quarterback we're not talking enough about, I think Utah is the team we're not talking enough about in general. I think they're really good. It seems like they might get Cam Rising, he's still questionable, but with or without him, I think Utah is going to win this game. I think they're just a little bit too tough. I think they're going to get after Dante Moore in a way that he hasn't really experienced so far this season. So if it were a little bit higher spread, I might, pick Utah to win, but give the points to UCLA. I think Utah winning by 6 or 7 points is a good bet.
Yeah, I like Dante Moore. I don't like him against Morgan Scalley's defense. And Ari, before the season, on our lessons that we learned show, we said we got to stop disrespecting Utah. And then we said, well, the schedule's really tough this year. I don't know. I think we did it, Ari. I think we violated our own policy. I think we've underrated Utah again. They're going to be undefeated after this week again with some quality wins. Florida, a win that is improving. Baylor, okay, whatever, but you won that game. And now UCLA, Utah might have the best.
Well, 2 out of their 3 wins this year are against teams that were dumpster fires the time as they played them.
Florida played poorly, but they still beat Tennessee, Ari, and soundly.
No, I'm saying the 2 teams or the 2 wins that Utah has are against 2 teams that were dumpster fires when they played them.
Sure, but
yeah, Baylor gifted them that win. In Baylor.
Also, Baylor beat them.
Well, they should have. They could.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I've never seen a game end the way that one did. But
yeah,
anyway,
that was bad.
Okay, I like Utah here. I think that Utah's style is the kryptonite to UCLA style, and I feel like that is going to show up here. Okay, next one: Oklahoma -14.5 on the road at Cincinnati. Justin covered Cincinnati for a long time, so let's have him start this one off.
A lot of air out of the Cincinnati balloon with that loss to Miami, Ohio at home last weekend. First time in 17 years Miami had beaten Cincinnati. Cincinnati was feeling good after, first couple of weeks. That week 2 Pitt win at Pitt, though, is starting to look less impressive after Pitt might not be really bad. Cincinnati is better than I expected them to be. I think this is a team that can reach bowl eligibility, especially with the schedule they have this year. I think Nippert Stadium is going to be out of its mind for the first Big 12 game, big noon, all that kind of stuff. But I still think Oklahoma's going to win and cover. Just a bad matchup too early in the season for Cincinnati with where they're at right now.
I think Oklahoma is a very undervalued team in general because we all have just assumed last year is just going to be a repeat of this year. And, their defense stinks. They don't know what they're doing at the quarterback position in terms of whether Dylan Gabriel's the permanent guy here or whether Jackson Arnold is ready to play and become a star. I don't know if that's like a mainstream thing. That's certainly something in my mind. But Oklahoma through the first 3 weeks of the season, they had a weird 28-11 win against SMU in week 2, but I just, they're scoring too much, and I just don't know if Cincinnati has the ability to keep up with this one.
I think I'm in on Oklahoma. I was negging them in the preseason. I didn't think they'd be losing season again, but I was like, what? Like Oklahoma seems way overvalued. This looks like a 7 to 9 win team to me. OU might be on the short list of most underrated teams in the country. That is, they haven't played the toughest schedule in the world, and they'll have their opportunities later on. But I think people are holding last year against them, perhaps unfairly. The quarterback injuries were part of it, but OU might be like low key one of the 10 best teams in the country. I need to see more from them, but man, it's been strong thus far.
I follow a gambling expert on Twitter named Tyler Shoemaker who does his own power ratings with advanced stats, who calculates the all the statistics for the data that you need to create spreads and lines for the game.
Texas number 1 on that one.
He uses all the data and then spits out his own lines, and then when he finds the discrepancies from the real lines, he bets those lines, and he does a really good job of winning bets. Number 1 team in his power ratings this year so far, Oklahoma. Something to keep in mind. So obviously that changes from week to week, and stats are certainly interesting when not everybody's playing equal opponents, but that's all factored into the data, and it seems like Oklahoma in his mind is the most undervalued team. So just
who used to never really mess around on their way to the playoff in the Big 12? It's Oklahoma. They used to just punk people every week.
Yeah, they did. They never had any close games ever.
Never any close games. 112-0 against the spread.
This is going to be the perfect segue to the superlative picks. That word I cannot say, and I never will be able to say it. Penn State minus 14.5 at Iowa is my upset alert of the week. And
what? No way. Are you serious?
15-0. Is that gonna be the final score?
This is
you're gonna have. I need you. I need you to go like 20 minutes on this. I can't believe you're saying this. Okay.
It's just weird to me, man. I don't know if Iowa is actually going to win this game. I don't think they're going to win the game.
Let me hear you.
I do think that Iowa's defense is very, very good. I think it's very possible that Iowa can drag Penn State into one of those disgusting, gross Iowa games that Kirk Ferentz dreams about at night. Gives Drew Aller, who's a quarterback in his first career season as a full-time starter, some trouble at home. I could just see this being like a 13-10 game at the end of the third quarter. And isn't that what upset alert is? Trying to find games that are double-digit dogs that, might actually be in a position to potentially win at the end of the third quarter. I'm not sitting here saying that Penn State's going to lose this game. I really hope for Penn State fans that their sake that they don't. But as Vaughn in the chat here, our number 1 fan and number 1 Iowa fan points out, you watch enough Big Ten football in your lifetime, and I spent a decade of it watching it every week, kind of knowing and expecting which games are going to be ugly because it becomes a pattern. And I really do think it's possible that this could be, one of these weird defensive touchdown Iowa games where Drew Aller takes a half to click. Iowa's inexplicably in the game, at the end of the third quarter, and then you're on upset alert. I think that's the definition.
I just think I think this Penn State team is just # built different than a lot of the
Penn State teams
of the past. And Iowa hadn't played. Listen, I am leaning toward Iowa's defense is probably still pretty good, but I think their offense is so bad and the defense scores so often that it's possible Iowa's defense is overrated. Iowa hasn't played a good offense or a good defense yet. Iowa State has a good scheme, but they don't have the players. So you made somewhat of a case, and I think that scenario is realistic. But I don't see a world in which Penn State doesn't just win this game like 30.
Well, Iowa scored 41 points last week. So if you want to take your step ladder and crawl out of Brian Ferentz's ass for the week and let him do his job, then maybe he won't. Did you see that dubbed thing that was going around Twitter?
Yeah, I agree with from the Split Zone duo. Alex Kirshner mentioned that if we can't even convince ourselves that a offensive coordinator clip is faked, I can't wait for the next upcoming.
Yeah, the robots
cycle.
drive to 325.
It's going to be great.
Here, Iowa's week 3 update. They've got 85 total points. Points away are 240. They need to average 24 points per game.
They're not getting 24 this week. I can tell you
which is hilarious because it's like they are right on the line. And like I thought that Scott Docterman wrote a really interesting column for us. I think it was this week, but it might have been last week about how
it's a good piece.
putting Iowa into kind of like a joke category with that contract is kind of like the result of this whole thing. It might have been a well-intentioned thought of like, hey, we need to be better offensively, and this is how we're going to get there. But like, it has become a punchline where we have.
It's the only fun thing about Iowa football. Everything else about them is just like.
So, Vaughn, if you're still there listening, I would like to know what your actual prediction is as a seasoned Iowa fan. But I do think that there is a chance. Yeah, Kirk Ferentz is still chasing that high of the Iowa 6, Penn State 4.
If he needs a pick me up, he just watches that Penn State Illinois game, the 9 overtime game. He just watches that every night, and it's like, oh man, this is fantastic. If he's ever feeling down, he just watches it and feels right about the world again.
All right, guys, what are your upset alerts of the week?
Go ahead, Ubben.
TCU, be careful. I believe Sonny Dykes said this week SMU is built or exists only to beat TCU. The last Skillet game for a while, SMU has beaten better at TCU teams with worse SMU teams. Rhett Lashley is a really good coach. There's some bad blood in this game for a number of different reasons. TCU has shown that I still think TCU is a good team. I think they're probably a top 25 team that people are sleeping on a little bit, but they're not invincible, and SMU is really, really good and can score as well. And TCU got to be careful with this one.
My trap game is Arkansas at LSU. I don't think Arkansas is going to win, but LSU, they're feeling good after that week 1 loss to Florida State. They got it back on track. Arkansas loses to BYU at home last week. They had no business losing that game. They were up 14-0 in a hurry. Then they were up 10 in the second half, and BYU just, credit to them for fighting back. But that was a game Arkansas is going to be ticked off that they lost. I just feel like Arkansas is that team. I feel like I'm always in on KJ Jefferson. I'm always in on Arkansas, and they always just kind of disappoint and come up short. But it feels like they're that team in the SEC, whether they beat someone or just put a scare into someone. Like they're the team that can throw off this whole dynamic. And there's not a ton of great trap game, upset potentials this week, but that was the one. I think it's 17.5. LSU's favored. That one feels like it could be a 7-point game in the fourth quarter that LSU ends up winning, but doesn't cover on.
The Arkansas group chats this week turned toxic. Sam Pittman needs a win. He needs a win. I would advise
he's a little on the hot seat, isn't he?
I don't know that hot seat is the right term. I think there's an element of like, what are you like? I'm skeptical that you can have somebody that better fits what you want to be and what you want to do. But he needs to win some ball games and stop losing to Liberty. That's my advice.
A&M versus Arkansas next week. I think that the coaching
that'd be a nice one.
Security discussion.
You want to have that one. You want to have that one.
Save some time here. At an hour and a half in, we all have the same sicko game of the week, which is Oklahoma State at Iowa State.
What has happened to our beloved Big 12, Ari? There was a time in which Oklahoma State was must-see TV. Now they are must-not-stream TV. It's
ebbs
tough,
and flows,
man.
my friend.
Yeah.
Ebbs and flows. I mean, you look at the slate, and like all of us were like, "Yep, that's it. That's the one."
I was kind of looking down, and I was.
What happened to Iowa State too? It's the same thing. I mean, both of these teams have had their times in the sun.
I feel bad for because like they're in a weird spot with the gambling stuff.
Yeah,
and I suspect that if every pro, I mean, they're not the. I think they're not the only team in the country that has players betting on college football or sports or whatever. But for whatever reason, they were the ones that got caught. But everyone I've talked to in the sport is like, this is, so that I kind of feel bad for Iowa State. They're just playing without a bunch of guys. So I'm sort of willing to just kind of throw this year and just give Matt Campbell a pass because they've lost so many guys. Starting quarterback, starting running back,
Yeah,
a couple other
tight
guys.
end.
I feel like, yeah. So, but in the meantime, unwatchable football. Good grief.
Yeah. The Oklahoma State quarterback situation is gross. They're
It's-
rotating 3 quarterbacks. Alan Bowman's the one who's thrown the most. The immortal Alan Bowman. Gundy's son is one of them.
They let him
been in
kind of
there.
just run around.
Yeah, and like it's every game. All 3 of them have played. All 3 of them have gotten their shots, and they're all just really bad. I'm with you. This is like one stay away from watching it, betting on it, everything. I know you guys talked a little bit about Spencer Sanders last week. That like the fact that he's probably having a good time. Like Ole Miss is good. Jackson
I
Dart
don't think so. I would
playing
be having
well.
a good time if I was.
But
him.
he's
I
sitting on the
play.
bench at Ole Miss,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like they could desperately use him in Stillwater. So that whole thing is just. I guess I can probably get to an understanding of why he might have left, but it just seems weird based on how it's all played out right now.
Locks of the week. We all agree
Locks
to.
of the week.
My keyboard, it's going to be on fire.
UNC minus 7.5 against Pitt. Like, if they can't win this game by 8, guys, Pitt is awful.
People don't realize Pitt stinks.
They're so bad.
You lost to Cincinnati, and then you lost to a West Virginia team. And I watched that game, and I did not come away from that game thinking, "Oh, West Virginia, they got some." No, I came away from that game thinking, can Phil Dracovic like see anything or process?
God bless
like,
Phil
what's
Dracovic,
happening?
but
What is happening? Like they got some real issues.
Do you guys know how many total yards Phil Dracovic and Nico Marchiol combined for in the West Virginia Pitt game?
I'm gonna say 237.
I'm
Total
taking the
passing
under.
yards.
I'm going $1, Bob, on that one.
141 total between the two. And
Nico was
wanna
like
hear the
6 for 9
funniest
for 60
part?
yards or
We
something.
should have had that one in the Sickos game last week.
I was
Instead of our pick.
on the over of that game, just so you all know. So that was a really, really nice afternoon for me. I don't know. North Carolina, I know that Florida State's kind of gotten all the shine right now. North Carolina did a really good job last year of kind of, blending into the schedule, and, people weren't really talking about them. I think they, ended the year in a pretty tough fashion there with the 3 straight losses, but they did get to a 9-1 record. And I wonder if they are, in a position right now while Florida State and Clemson are all, talk of the town, and Miami's a little bit better. If they could just kind of like sneak away and win a few games here, that gets them excited. I mean, listen, they play at Pitt this weekend. I think they're going to win by 100. Then Syracuse, and the toughest game of their season, potentially before the Clemson game, is Miami, and then Virginia, Georgia Tech, Campbell, Duke. Like, they have a chance to have a really special season. And I think this would be a nice way for them to kind of start ACC play and make a statement that they're going to be a really good football team.
The fact that we all 3 have this as our lock, though, makes me think Pitt's going to win this game out.
They are.
Right now.
Pitt will.
Yeah.
I mean, me and Andy used to have a joke. I was like, if you bet on a Pitt game, you're going to lose. It doesn't matter what side you're on. Like-
I will say this is a really bad time for Pat Narduzzi to have this kind of year, because if he'd won, 9-10 games this year, buddy, you're getting that Michigan State
Michigan
job.
State, yeah.
And if
No,
you go
listen.
6-6, that's a tough sell. I don't think
This
you're going
just
to get
gives
it.
Pat Narduzzi more time to complain about NIL. Okay, it's fine. Thank you guys so much for watching until Saturday. That was a long marathon of an episode. Be sure to follow the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Leave a thumbs up and hit a subscribe button. Leave a review. Anything that you can do to help the podcast continue to grow and flourish means a lot to us. Also, be sure to follow the YouTube page. All the shows information will be found in the description, and you can find the links to where you need to follow there. Follow David Ubben, Justin Williams, and I on Twitter. I'm at Ari Wasserman. He's at David Ubben, and at Williams_Justin, because of course you put your last name first. I appreciate you guys for joining me. I thought it was a really good time. We'll see how good we are. Watch out for Clemson. It's going to be a sneaky one now. Dave and I will be live at some point in the wee hours of the night on Saturday.
Well, maybe
I'll be
if
at the
Texas loses, we'll be live.
Immediately
Yeah,
after the
we'll see.
Texas Baylor game.
I am staying in Chicago, and I'm covering a game in South Bend, so it's going to be a journey of a day on
Yeah, I'm
Saturday.
the same way. I'm staying in Portland and covering a game in Eugene, so it's going to be a little bit crazy on Saturday.
I might be at Pete Sampson's house for this, depending on how late the press box is open. Regardless, we will be live on Saturday night after all the stuff settles. We will be live again on Sunday for the Sunday Sound Off. Make sure to leave your voicemails. Again, that phone number is 316-462-9852. 316-462-9852. We will do our best to get you on the show. Until then, thanks for watching. that was until Saturday.
Bring back